Hello and good day everyone. I hope you are doing great. I am one of the reporter and now let's talk all about the speech impairments and language disorder. To begin with, let's define what is a speech impairments. When we say at speech impairments, these are the communication disorders such as stuttering, impaired articulation, and language or voice impairment. Class, basically when we say as speech impairments, these are the communication disorders, the barriers or the factors that a person with disability is communicating to. So if they are going to having an interactions, the speech impairments will course, no? Like for example, the stuttering, the impaired articulation, and the language or the voice impairment. So there are four basic types of speech impairments, namely the articulation disorder, the phonological disorder, the fluency disorder, and lastly, the voice disorder. So we are going to discuss each type of the speech impairment, starting off with the articulation disorder. So when we say the articulation disorder, is that a child is unable to produce a given sound physically. So severe articulation disorder may render a child's speech unintelligible. Like for example, there are the substitutions, there are omissions, distortions, and additions of sounds. Like for example, the normal person would say the statement, I want a blue lollipop. So a person who having a speech impairment or a person with a disability would rather say instead, I want a blue lollipop. No, so murag naa siya something articulation nga nahitabo. No, mura og lagyo na siya, but kung atong i-mindset or una-unaon, mura og duol-duol sad ang iyang ipasabot. Like for example, from the word boo, no, so murag duol-duol sad siya sa word nga blue. Then ang lollipop sad is duol-duol siya sa words nga lollipop. So that is the articulation disorder. Next is the phonological disorder. So phonological disorder is that a child produces multiple patterns of sound errors with obvious impairments of intelligibility. There are also notes that are inconsistent and misarticulating of sounds. So like for example, the normal person says, that pie is so good. That pie is good. Then a person who having a speech impairment would rather say, cat pie is good. No, so it is very obvious that the person who is stating that statement is having an impairment. No, kay it's very par na jud siya. No, magsakit na siguro ato ang ulo, magkalibog-libog na ta kung unsa ang unsa gipertain within that specific person. Kay it is very far lang jud kaadyo kung unsa ang iyaang gusto ipa-approve. So that is an example of phonological disorder. Lagyo jud kaayo siya, murag wala jud siya pattern, no? Daghang jud kay siya himuon nga pattern. The next is the fluency disorder. So when we say fluency disorders, these are the difficulties with the rhythm and timing of speech. Stuttering is an example marked by rapid repetitions of consonant or vowel sounds, especially at the beginning of vowels. So there are also prolongations, hesitations, intersections, and complete verbal blocks. So I will give you an example from the blocks, the prolongations, and the repetitions, starting off with the blocks. So, like for example, I want a banana. Now, it is very obvious nga naa jud say pausing or something curiosity nga nahitabo. No, so it's something like the person who having a speech impairment is mura og mawala bito sa kung unsaya ang subject, kung unsaya ang subject nga i-pertaining to. So next is the prolongations from the root word long. No, so taas yun siya. Like for example, I want a banana. No, so I hope I can pertain what is this kind of prolongation. But however, kung ano siya, taas siya kung giunsa pag-pronounce for the person having a speech impairment. Next is the repetitions. So, magbalik-balik. Like for example, I want a banana. Alright, so those are the examples of the fluency disorder. So, mauni sila ang mga factors or mga possible occurrences nga mahitabo if the person is having a speech impairment in the fluency disorder factors. So, however, these are the things, no, bisan og maglisod silang istorya, bisan og wala kay sila, adi kay sila makalitok og tarong, mawala sila ang hunahuna, but they are having or makapertain gyapon sila kung unsa ang ilaang buot ipasabot. Then the last one is the voice disorder. So when we say voice disorder, these are the problems with the quality of one's voice resulting from disorder of the larynx. Voice may be excessively hoarse, breathy, or too high-pitched. So basically, when we say a voice disorder, it is this disorder coming from the voice. So these are the factors that kamitang usaon nila kung usay nila pagtingog bitaw. Like for example, gihangat baron, paspas baron, and etc. Like for example, the phonation disorder or the breathiness or the hoarseness, the hypersonality, and the hyponasality. When we say hypersonality, this is the too much sounds resonates or vibrates in the nasal cavity or nose during speech. And in other words, when we say hyponasality, is when there is not enough sounds resonating in the nasal cavity or nose during the speech. So that's it. So those are the 4 basic type of the speech impairment: the articulation disorder, the phonological disorder, the fluency disorder, and the voice disorder. So now let's proceed to the language disorder. So language disorders involves a problem in one or more of the 5 components of language and are often classified as expressive and receptive. So class, when we say language disorders, so these are characterized by persistent difficulties in acquiring the use of language that results from deficits in comprehensions that includes the child's reduced vocabulary, limited sentence structures, and impairments in discourse. Now, this may limit the child's functioning. So, let's talk about the expressive language disorder. So, these are to interferes with the productions of language. Like for example, a child may have a very little vocabulary that impacts communication skills or misuses words and phrases in sentence. In contrary, the receptive language disorders interferes with the understanding of language. Like for example, a child may have difficulty in understanding spoken sentence or following the directions of the teacher's give. So that's it. So I think it is very understandable enough about the speech impairments and language disorder. So I think that will be all for the speech impairments and language disorders. So I will give to the next report. Thank you.